Welcome to today's English learning session, where we'll delve into the classic tale of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This story takes us on an unforgettable journey with a young boy named Huck Finn and his friend Jim as they travel down the Mississippi River in search of freedom. It's a tale of adventure, friendship, and the struggle to do what's right in a world full of challenges. Huckleberry Finn, or Huck as everyone calls him, lives in a small town along the mighty Mississippi River. Huck's life is far from easy. His mother passed away when he was very young, leaving him to be raised by his father, Pap Finn, who is more interested in drinking than taking care of his son. Pap is often away, leaving Huck to fend for himself. When Pap does show up, it usually means trouble for Huck. Pap demands money from his son and threatens him if he doesn't get it. Huck, however, is a clever and resourceful boy. He hides the little money he earns from odd jobs, knowing that Pap would only spend it on alcohol. Despite his difficult home life, Huck finds some stability living with the widow Douglas and her sister Miss Watson. They have taken him in and are determined to civilize him. This means teaching Huck how to read and write, dressing him in proper clothes, and making him attend school regularly. But Huck isn't fond of this civilized life. He feels trapped by the rules and the strict expectations. He longs for the freedom of the open air, the river, and the woods, where he can be himself without anyone telling him what to do. His best friend, Tom Sawyer, feels the same way. Tom is the leader of a group of boys who form a robbers' gang. They pretend to be outlaws, planning daring raids and imagining themselves as heroes of grand adventures. Huck loves these games as they provide an escape from his otherwise tough life. The boys often meet in a secret cave where they plan their pretend robberies and dream of finding hidden treasure. One night, Huck's life takes a drastic turn. Pap returns to town and demands that Huck give him all the money he has saved. Huck, knowing his father's temper, gives him a little money but not all. Furious, Pap drags Huck away from the widow Douglas's house and locks him in a cabin deep in the woods. In this isolated cabin, Huck is held prisoner by his own father. Pap spends most of his time drinking and ranting about the government, while Huck is left alone, feeling more trapped than ever. But Huck's spirit is not easily broken. He begins to plan his escape, knowing that he must get away before Pap's temper turns violent. One day, while Pap is away in town, Huck puts his plan into action. He saws through a part of the cabin wall and crawls out. But instead of just running away, Huck decides to make it look like he has been killed. He stages a scene with pig's blood to make it appear as though he was murdered and thrown into the river. This way, no one will come looking for him. On Jackson's Island, Huck feels a sense of freedom he hasn't experienced in a long time. He is finally away from his father's grasp and the restrictions of society. But Huck soon realizes he's not alone on the island. He comes across Jim, Miss Watson's slave, who has also run away. Jim is just as startled to see Huck. At first, Jim is afraid that Huck will turn him in, but Huck quickly reassures him. Jim explains that he ran away after hearing Miss Watson talk about selling him to a plantation down south. Jim couldn't bear the thought of being separated from his family and sent to a place where life would be even harder. Huck is faced with a dilemma. He knows that helping a runaway slave is considered wrong by society's standards, but he can't bring himself to betray Jim. Huck decides to keep Jim's secret and stay on the island with him. The two become companions, each with his own reason for wanting to stay hidden from the world. As days pass, Huck and Jim grow closer. Huck begins to see Jim not just as a slave, but as a friend, a human being with feelings, fears, and dreams. This bond challenges everything Huck has been taught about race and slavery, but he doesn't dwell on it too much. For now, they are both just trying to survive. After a while, Huck and Jim realize they can't stay on the island forever. People in town might come looking for Huck, and Jim's escape could be discovered. They decide to build a raft and float down the Mississippi River, hoping to reach the Ohio River, where Jim can find freedom in the northern states. The river offers both beauty and danger. As they float along, Huck and Jim enjoy the peaceful moments, fishing, telling stories, and watching the changing scenery. But they also face many challenges. The river is unpredictable, and the towns they pass through are full of dangers. One night, a thick fog descends on the river, and Huck and Jim get separated. Huck struggles to find his way back to the raft, calling out for Jim in the darkness. When they finally reunite, Huck is relieved to see Jim's familiar face, and they both realize how much they rely on each other. Their bond grows stronger with each passing day. Huck, who once thought of Jim as just another slave, now sees him as a true friend. Jim, in turn, cares deeply for Huck, often looking out for him like a protective older brother. Together they face each new challenge, determined to reach their goal. Throughout their journey, Huck and Jim meet many different people, each with their own story. Some are kind, offering help or advice, while others are dangerous or deceitful. Huck and Jim must learn to navigate these encounters carefully, always wary of who they can trust. One day, Huck and Jim come across two men who claim to be royalty, the Duke and the King. These men are actually con artists, traveling from town to town, scamming people out of their money. They convince Huck and Jim to let them join them on the raft, and soon the journey takes a more dangerous turn. Huck quickly realizes that the Duke and the King are not to be trusted, but he and Jim are in too deep to break away from them easily. The con men's schemes grow more elaborate and risky, putting everyone on the raft in danger. Huck, though still young, begins to see the true nature of these men and the world around him. Despite the danger, Huck's cleverness and quick thinking help him and Jim stay out of serious trouble. Eventually, Huck sees an opportunity to get rid of the Duke and the King for good. He leads them into a trap, where they are captured by an angry mob, and Huck and Jim finally manage to escape, continuing their journey alone. After escaping the Duke and the King, Huck and Jim's journey becomes quieter, but Huck's mind is troubled. He knows that helping Jim, a runaway slave, is considered a terrible crime by society. He begins to wrestle with his conscience, wondering if he should turn Jim in. Huck even writes a letter to Miss Watson, telling her where Jim is, but he can't bring himself to send it. Huck's internal conflict reaches its peak when he makes a decision that will define him forever. He decides that he would rather go to the bad place than betray Jim. Huck realizes that society's rules are not always right, and that sometimes you have to follow your heart, even if it means going against everything you've been taught. With this decision, Huck feels a sense of peace. He knows that he and Jim must stick together no matter what. From this point on, their journey is not just about reaching freedom. It's about standing up for what is right, even when it's difficult. After facing many trials and dangers, Huck and Jim finally reach the edge of the Free States. The town they arrive at is quiet and peaceful, a stark contrast to the wild and dangerous journey they've had on the river. Here, Jim has a real chance at freedom, and Huck can decide what to do next with his life. Though their journey together comes to an end, both Huck and Jim have been changed forever. Huck, once a boy with little understanding of the world, has grown into someone who sees the value of every human life, regardless of race or background. Jim, who began the journey as a runaway slave, now stands on the brink of freedom with the hope of reuniting with his family. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is more than just a story of two friends on a raft. It's a story about the moral complexities of life, the courage it takes to stand up against injustice, and the power of friendship to overcome even the most difficult of circumstances. As Huck and Jim part ways, the lessons they've learned on their journey will stay with them and with us forever. Thank you for joining us in this story of Huck, Finn, and Jim. We hope you enjoyed traveling down the Mississippi River with them and learned some valuable lessons along the way. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more English learning content. Until next time, Keep learning and keep exploring new stories.